back to them with, Kath, correct?
Yes, Ann. They had estimated high because they weren't sure how many meters that were currently available already purchased by the township. So we were able to provide them with that number, and they were able to reduce the number of meters that are supposed to be provided because you already own them. So that was a large part of the cost reduction. There was also a question in regard to the labor component of it. And when I went back to the 2020 proposal, that was for all three phases, which is also included in that information, that the labor cost per unit was only a $5 increase from what was originally proposed, from $105 to $110 per unit for installation.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Kath, or do we have enough information now to move forward?
Tammy, could you remind us what has been set aside budget-wise for this?
405,000.
It is the 405?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not dealing with a variance then, just additional information? Very good. All right, then I'd like to propose a motion that we approve the updated proposal from Ferguson Water Works for the amount of $383,828.47 to be paid from General Ledger 591,000,980.100.
Support.
All right, I don't know. Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Mr. Spencer, to go ahead with the Phase 3 meter replacement proposal. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. And thank you for diving into that deeper, Kath.
Thank you, Kath.
Moving on to number 4, which is the letter of intent for Oscoda Township property, parcel 021R3000001300, which is actually located in Oscoda Township.
All right. Your packet contains a letter of interest from John Graham of Northern Truck Repair to purchase Oscoda Township-owned property located in Osable Township off River Road, across from Northern Truck Repair. The administrative staff is fully aware that the board voted to postpone any action on this site until more discovery was made regarding a potential cemetery expansion, whether on this site or on another alternate site. While that is in process, the information is not ready to be presented to the board. The board is reminded that the administrative staff is not authorized to make decisions on real property on behalf of the township and is obligated to bring any and all offers before the board for consideration. I would ask that the board consider making a motion based on the following options: approval of the LOI as it is written, counteroffer to the LOI, tabling a decision until further discussion is had regarding the cemetery expansion, declining the offer at the board's discretion.
Does anybody have any thoughts here that they would like to discuss?
Well, I think we've postponed this at previous meetings to get information for the cemetery, so I don't see where that has changed. I would move that we postpone this LOI until further information can be gathered as it relates to our cemetery requirements.
I'll support that.
There is a motion by Mr. Palmer and support by Mr. Wusterbarth to postpone, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. If we do agree and we pass a postponement, does this LOI expire? How long would we be postponing it for? I don't think there's anything.
It doesn't have an expiration on it.
Yeah, I just wondered if there was any information we had on that.
I mean, it's not on the LOI anyways.
Right, yeah, okay, thank you.
Mhm. Okay, roll call, please.
Who made the motion?
Oh, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Westerbarth.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes,
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Next on is the letter of intent on Furtaw Field. Tammy?
All right. Your packet contains 2 letters of interest from PKL Homes as alternate scenarios in which the buyer seeks to purchase Furtaw Field. Proposed preliminary development plans are included in the packet as well. Scenario 1 consists of an offer of $50,000 for the entire site with the caveat the developer would be responsible for the expense of developing the proposed community green space. Any purchase agreement would need to include the specific amenities to be provided in public access language. Scenario 2 does not include green space and provides a plan where the site would maximize housing for market rate rentals. A timely decision is requested as there are multiple grant programs through the state with the fast approaching application deadlines that could have a very positive impact for the community and the proposed green space option. Accepting a purchase offer for township-owned property requires board approval.
Okay, thank you. And I believe we were asked just prior to the meeting to upload a presentation.
Ms. Lovelace asked if she could do a presentation just
Okay.
before the meeting, yes.
So just, it's up to the board's discretion. Do you want the presentation loaded and her to come to the podium? Okay. Yes, okay, all
fine.
right.
yep.
Please come to the podium. You're welcome.
Thank you for allowing me to present tonight. This is not an easy thing for me. I wanted to just give everyone an idea of my experience. I've been in the housing industry for over 25 years. I've done every job from holding a real estate license to being a senior underwriter, branch manager, funder. Anything has to do with financing, I've done it. The reason that I went into workforce housing was because I was one of those traveling professionals. So I know what they deal with when they're on the road having to complete a job. The reason that I got into housing from a different perspective and we started our corporation and our company is because I became permanently disabled. I have limited use of both of my hands and can no longer type. So if you receive correspondence from me and there's a typo, it's because I'm dictating. So please bear that in mind. But that sent me down a career path that I was not anticipating, and it has been the joy of my life. We came from Reno, Nevada, back to Oscoda. I am not an unfamiliar person with the area as well. I've been coming here since 1988. Since my husband and I have been married, we had our engagement party at the Pack House and at the American Legion Hall. So I have a lot of family in the area, and we selected Oscoda to retire. We could have gone to Las Vegas, but we wanted to come here because this town has embraced me for so many years, and I've come to love it. It reminds me of where I grew up in southern New Jersey, in a town that was smaller than this on a big farm. So having said that, I wanted to bring to you my vision for Furtaw Field. PKL Homes seeks to construct and operate 30 to 90 residential units combined with 2 retail spaces comprised of mixed use as per existing CMU code The footprint of residential construction located as follows: mixed use with an Axe Bar restaurant on the right-hand side with 15 to 30 units above on US 23. Paul Bunyan would remain in place, and the retail on the left-hand side of Paul would be 15 to 30 above on US 23. Remaining residential units would be located on Evergreen and Water, with workforce short-term rentals to be located on Lake Street in Plan A. Our site plan is currently drafted with interior parking to accommodate the total number of units in the center of the common area, but we'd like to explore if another parking option would be acceptable to allow a small grassy area of picnic tables in the quarter of Lake and Water. Plan B, so I have two LOIs in front of you. Plan B would provide the same number of units on US 23, but 3/4 of the lot would be utilized as community space. Please see rendering B. The plan would do away with the remaining units planned on Evergreen and Lake Streets, and we would have a smaller community garden located in the corner of Lake and East Water. The reason that I proposed two LOIs is the first rendering was a complete build. The second rendering and plan was put in place because I am very conscious of the love that this town has for that land and the pertinence of the land. But I also understand that have my history of coming here for years, I have seen the digress of the town. And walking through and seeing so many empty buildings was very disturbing when we came back to retire. And that set me on the path to find out why. I knew the base closure would affect population, but I had no idea it would have the impact that I saw when I came back. And quite frankly, there was no way that I could retire knowing there was something that I could do to contribute and help the town. So I identified Fertile Field because it is a beacon of the town. The town has extreme pride in this location. And because of that, I went back and reworked my complete plan so that I could offer the town a compromise of resolution. It's been established that Oscoda really needs this housing to support not only the employers that are here, but the ones that will be coming, and they will come. But it starts with the necessities. I sat on the board in Reno, Nevada for economic development. I am a member of the Builders Association. I know what companies look at when they are relocating to an area. And housing is a key component. If you cannot provide housing for the employees that are coming, they will not come. And employers that are here, if their employees do not have housing, they will leave. They will come for what they need, get with their training that they need, and then they will leave and go to other areas. So I looked at what would be a contribution to Oscoda. And Fertile Field was a site that I selected because of the importance. It's been important to my family. It's been important to the town. So I hear everything. In fact, I went back and reviewed every single board meeting that has happened here in the last year. And I looked at the plans that were presented. And in my second rendering, I tried to implement some of those plans. 3/4 of the land in my second proposal is given back to the community. And I would challenge the community and ask the community for support for that plan and ask them, what do you want there? Because I will put it there to make sure that it is a community beacon. But I also know that as businesses come through that town, they need to see progression and growth for Oscoda and the future. And by doing that, you will draw more businesses to the town by providing the housing and providing the green space, because I believe in that also. It's one of the reasons why I came back here to retire, is because how beautiful it is and what the green space is everywhere. Something that I think that Oscodans, forget about. It's beautiful everywhere. So I just wanted to get that out. So I offered a Plan A and Plan B, one with full capacity, one with reduced capacity. And I wanted to just give you an idea of what the container homes would look like. And just so you know, this was not my intention when I came back. I came back to chill and retire and put my feet up. But the need is so strong. People are traveling great distances, sleeping in their cars, and have to go to work the next day. No one should have to do that. So I found a way to bring housing, and this is why I chose containers, because I'm aware of supply chain issues. I'm aware of building standards. And I chose an alternative source of building that was cost-effective, readily available, and I chose a general construction company that is in Michigan that has the experience to do this type of build, has done it before, and those issues are not a concern or problem. In fact, we can build this out in 9 months. So I'd like to play you a video just of what they can look like on the inside. I know there's been a lot of discussion on what they look like on the outside, but please understand, this method of construction can be cladded so that it looks more traditional to support what's around it, and it is viable. It is being done all over the world, all over the United States, in various cities and towns, and it is a cost-effective way of building, and it can provide more economical housing. So I'd like to show you a video of what they can look like on the inside. Sound man, hello. Can we
JD, are you
play?
ready to, is that going to show up
Yes.
on this screen behind her?
Should show.
Behind Pam, or on the board?
Yes, ma'am. We do have your video. Stand by.
Oh, so it's back there?
I think he's going to play it.
Okay. We think. Yeah, no. Huh?
We do have your video, ma'am, and it's just being technologically challenging. Give me just a hot second here.
Okay.
Thinking of theater, they'd be able to show a video, wouldn't
Ms. Richards,
Hmm?
where are you?
I'm sorry. There's, no, I'm sorry, you can't.
Ms. Richards?
Yes.
I was going to ask, did you receive the renderings, the second set of renderings with the green space?
Yes. We have
Okay.
two different ones.
The ones that
Okay.
the documents I'm looking at show the green space on proposal number 1 and the entire, and the whole, and the extra buildings on proposal number 2. So
If they're
we-
reversed.
Okay.
I don't know
I-
why
I
they were
figured that they
presented
were,
that way.
but-
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure if the audience had a chance to see the secondary renderings, but on the green space, as I recall, the 4 plans that were presented in December, they were A through D. I implemented a lot of the items that were in Plan D because it allowed me to use a quarter of the land and then do everything else that was on those renderings incorporated. And one thing you will find about me as a business person is I'm a great listener. I listen to people, and I hear you. And I took in a lot of the comments that were made this weekend, and people reached out to me personally, and I heard all of you. So regardless of what happens, just know that, and I appreciate your sharing with me what you really feel and what you're looking for, because I'd like to bring the community in if this is decided
Okay.
to move forward. I'd like to bring the community in to give me those suggestions, because I want to put what you want there, because we are community.
JD, do we think we're going to have this, or, I mean, basically, this video is to show us the inside.
Yes,
Okay. In
ma'am.
the meantime, is there anything you want to say to wrap up the
Yes.
presentation to the board? If we can load the video, that would be great.
Yes.
If not, then
If not,
yeah.
we can move on.
Right.
But I just wanted to share with you, this has not been easy for me. I understand that I have relocated to an area where very few people look like me. I went to a dinner with my husband earlier this month, a Friday night out, and we went to an establishment, and my husband went to get a drink from me from the bar, and I had a man walk up to me and insult me and called me a predator.
What?
And I was so stunned that I couldn't say a word. And I was surrounded by people in tables, and no one said a word. And he went back to his table. They got up and left. And he turned around and said it again and pointed at me. I was so upset I couldn't eat. I had to leave. I had to go to my sister-in-law's house, and it shook me up for a couple of weeks. But what came out of that, there's always a glimmer. Scott, always a glimmer. The couple that was sitting over my shoulder to the left told the waitress and paid our tab. And they told the waitress to tell me that this is not what Oscoda is about. And that redeemed it for me. So I want you to know, this was not an easy thing. I have personally spent $60,000 working on this project, talking on the phone to agencies every single day. I've only been here since November. But that's how important it is to me. So, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Jade, do you think we're going to be, no? Okay. All right. Well, I apologize that we can't. All right. And thank you for sharing that, your information presentation and the second component that you shared. And sorry that happened to you. All right. That being said, I'm assuming the board has some questions. Anybody want to start?
right. So the buildings are built out of used storage containers, great big shipping containers, right? When I'm looking at the renderings that you've got here, it looks like the top of the buildings, the roof area, if you will, is exposed. And you're saying that these buildings are going up all over the world. What kind of maintenance is required to keep that steel from rusting away? Because we are in an area that it likes to go quick. My truck is a prime example.
You're actually, I'm sorry, if we're going to ask you questions and you're
Sorry.
going to answer, then you're going to have to go up to the microphone. I apologize.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the shipping containers are meant to go on ships, so they're heavy gauge steel. They don't rust through. If they rust, they patina. They are treated. My construction company will actually paint and treat the exterior of the containers. Now, when they do rust, and they may, they patina on the outside, it does not penetrate through. So it actually makes the container stronger. So I hope that answers your question. And,
So-
and the roofs are not, open, if you
Well,
mean
no.
by exposed.
No, I meant just that there was steel instead of
Yes,
some
they
kind of
are
roofing material.
complete steel, yes.
So how often, so after the treatment process and after you paint them, how long does that treatment usually last before the rust that you're talking about starts to pop up in an average case?
In an average case, every 10 years, you're going to need to recoat these.
So you probably got that as part of the maintenance plan? for the
Yes, I
facility
do.
And all that stuff? Cool.
I have a question.
Yes.
I've seen container buildings here in Michigan, and I've also seen them in Las Vegas. The question that I've had in both cases is, in such extreme climates where we have cold here and heat there, how do you possibly live comfortably in them? There isn't, well, I mean, what are you putting there that insulates from the extreme cold or heat?
They're thermally insulated with spray foam insulation. And I've had questions about condensation because of
Okay.
the cold here, yes?
Sure.
So condensation isn't a problem because of the type of insulation, spray foam insulation that's used as part of the framing process. You would get condensation with a container home if it was sitting out in a field and it was not insulated. But that is not the case in these types of builds.
So in terms of heating efficiency or cooling efficiency in this case, you're saying it's going to be on par with a
Traditional
regular home?
building, yes.
Your
We will
wooden
be,
mortar?
yes, sir. We will be following all traditional building standards and codes. So in the containers, we use a mini split system, so it can heat or cool.
I have to say, and then I'm done, so thank you, Ann, for multiple questions here. I have to say, containers don't excite me. I have to say that they don't have an aesthetic appeal. Even when they are properly painted and the ones I saw in Las Vegas, where there's literally a park of these things, and they did a lot to try to show what could be done, but I guess maybe I'm now to this point in my life where I get to say, maybe I'm just a little too old to consider this new idea. I just don't, it doesn't appeal to me. And I don't know that I like a long, narrow living space that I would be looking into. I'm not sure. But this all leads into, instead of a negative commentary, it leads into a positive point that you actually made earlier, and that was that you're actually asking not just Oscoda, but us as well, what do we want? And you're putting something on the table. And while I'm not in favor of the plans you're proposing, I'm not in any way not in favor of you or your ideas or what you're trying to do. We do need housing, but I'd really like to see it in a different form.
Thank you. Thank you for your opinion.
Thank you.
Steve, Bill, or?
Sure. I hate to, I have to agree and disagree with Mr. Cummings. I agree that the container buildings are, you know, they look like container buildings for the most part. And that being said, that doesn't mean that they're bad. I think that they have excellent usefulness, and I think that they could be put in other areas of the town that would be absolutely acceptable. But you have even spoken about our township's love-hate relationship with Furtaw Field, depending on where you're at. And I can't see us putting those buildings on that property at this time. But they are beautiful. And also, they cut the sides of them, so they're not long, narrow like a trailer. It's actually an apartment. I mean, they're nice.
The double is.
Yeah.
The single is single.
Well, oh, is it? Is the single? A single? Yeah.
Yes.
I
there's
stand
a-
corrected.
There is a double studio, which is 2 containers, 2 20-footers put together.
Okay.
There's a single, which is long and narrow, and then there's a double, 40-foot. So that is a 2-bedroom. I wish my video would have played,
Yeah.
Right there with
because
that.
I really wanted you to see what they would actually look like.
Oh, yeah. There's a couple TV shows out there that show some of the container homes that people have custom built, and they have built them out quite nicely. I mean, we're talking, that's pretty nice. The other thing I wanted to point out is that I really like what you were doing with the green space there, where you're adding the courts and the pavilions. You know, a lot of the township folks, they want to see that. And so if we can get something like that without the, I just can't get behind the container buildings on Furtaw. I'm sorry. I'd love to see you acquire the property in front of the old Cedar Lake Elementary, though, and tear those old buildings down and put them up right there. That way, they're still on 23 and still beautiful. And I think that you can. I think you have the perseverance. I think that these are going to happen, and I'm excited to see them.
Thank you.
And I kind of go down the line, yeah.
I had a question about the flat roof.
Yes.
And how that gets maintained in the wintertime with the snow buildup that we have, well, occasionally that we have here in Oscoda anyways. We don't
Right.
always get as much. Is there any type of system that's put on there to, when it melts off, to get that stuff off of there, or how do you?
Yes, my builders actually were addressing that. They can put a shed roof on that so that it's not pooling, if you will, when snow actually melts. So you'll see a lot of renderings out there on YouTube, for instance, where they've got a partially shed roof so that that elevation allows for that runoff and it's not pooling.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell that by the drawings there.
Yeah.
I appreciate the information. I will say that I think that the recycling of the units and using it for this type of a purpose is a great idea. I love it. I like the ones of actually the single units kind of in the different areas. I'm not a fan of it on Furtaw Field, absolutely not. I do appreciate the time and effort you put into creating the green space also and taking into the consideration some of the things that people have said. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that totally. I would like to see it somewhere else in our town, but definitely in our town someplace.
Ms. Lovelace, thank you for coming. Appreciate your presentation and all the hard work you're putting in here. I attended the Planning Commission where you came to present kind of your preliminary site plan for the PUD type, this in a PUD type
Yes.
situation on Van Etten Dam area, the old trailer park there. And I was a skeptic. But for that area, and yes, we need housing here. We do. I appreciate the investment here. I appreciate you taking all the public comments in and coming and listening to what we've done with Furtaw, because it is a very hot topic in this town. And you've incorporated some of that in here. Me personally, having lived down the street there for 20 years, I just can't see container-type housing there, even with the green space. But I do appreciate the effort that you've put in here, and I will fully support you in the PUD development going forward.
Thank you.
Real quick, Ms. Richards. What was on the plan with the most green space on it? The one
Yes.
with the two main buildings? What size of footprint do you need in acreage for that, without the green space, of course?
1 acre.
1 acre for each building or total?
No, 1 acre total.
Bill?
Well, a couple of things I would like to say. First of all, Oscoda has a lot of good people here, mostly good people, and I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I would hope that whoever that person was a visitor, not somebody local here. I think most everybody in this community would welcome you with open arms here to our community. That's number one thing I'd like to say. Number two, when I first heard the concept of container homes, I was in the trucking business for 40 years, and first thing I think containers, only homeless people live in containers. But this weekend, I saw an advertisement for a complex of container homes being built in Louisville, Kentucky. And they did show an interior, and they are quite spectacular, actually. The presentation they had, I should have written down the name of the builder that did it, but I forgot that. It was difficult to tell when they were done that they were containers. They really were. So I think it's a concept that is probably going to expand in the country, across the country, because of the time frame in which you can build them. But I will get down to my primary concern with your letter of intent was the price. Based on other properties that we've sold recently, I felt that was way too low of an offer. So I just wanted to mention that part. We desperately, as everybody said, we desperately need housing. You've recognized that. We all recognize that up here. We're working towards doing that. I personally, my personal feeling that I've had for a long time is I would like to see the township develop Furtaw Field with a community center, new public safety for our police and fire. The fire department desperately needs a larger facility, as do our police officers, and potentially new township offices. I'd like to see a 3-story, with the third story being a meeting center with windows where we could have our township board meetings and look out over the lake, at least in the summer months when it's still light. So those were the comments that I had about the letter of intent. And of course, a letter of intent is just that, your intent of something you want to do. We're not, even if we accept the letter of intent, it's not authorizing us to sell the property, just so everybody understands that. But those were my concern. The primary concern was the offering price put on.
If I may address that. The reasoning that I offered $150 on the full price was because there are no utilities on the parcel. So utilities would have to be pulled for the build to be successful. At full capacity, would be very costly. So I did an adjustment on price for that. The secondary rendering at $50,000, the reason that I dropped so low to that amount was because 2/3 of the property I cannot generate revenue on. 2/3 is being given back to the community. And I'm absorbing the cost to improve that land on behalf of the community. It's not coming from the township. So that's why I did a reduction. And that was actually suggested to me from Medic, because this is already put in front of them. So I just wanted to put that out there that, I had a justification
Okay.
for why I made that offer. Because I feel that the land is probably worth closer to 250 or somewhere in there. But again, I needed to adjust that's going to be a substantial utility cost. This project, even at a reduced unit count, is close to a $5 to $6 million project. So it's not a little bit of money, it's a lot of work, and it has to be a good fit for everybody. And I'm not sure if the audience knows that I've already proposed and am in contract on another piece of property off of Van Etten Dam Road to build 89 units there. So when I say I'm committed, I'm committed. We are also going to, this build will also hire 30 full-time employees in the Oscoda area. We are building a manufacturing facility to be able to manufacture these units. Because of my client base that's existing, I have a website that's visited by companies from all over the world that are looking for workforce housing. And all of my projects would be listed on that website. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. My son is developing a app for workforce travel for companies to be able to go on and book. So this isn't a small venture, but it's something that I know will be successful here. Oscoda will come back, I have no doubt. I just want to do everything I can to support that.
Thank you.
I just had a couple comments, but I had a
Yes.
question first.
Yes, ma'am.
Who did you reference when you indicated the person who suggested about the green space and so on?
They didn't suggest the green space, they were speaking
Maybe.
to the pricing.
Okay, I'm
As
sorry, who
far
was that?
as,
MEDC?
that was Medic, yes,
Okay, so MEDC.
yes.
Okay, all right. I thought-
You
I
have a
didn't
lot of
hear-
acronyms here.
Yes, we do. I just didn't hear what you said, so that's
Yes.
what I wanted to, okay. All right, I guess I had a couple things. First, thank you very much
Yes.
for putting together the presentation. I did watch some behavior on Facebook. I'm sorry that you were subject to so many negative things. It happens. People are passionate, very passionate in our community, and we can't fault them for that. People are passionate, so everybody has a right to their opinion, I guess. So but I am sorry that you had to, had to see some of that. I guess my thought process is in June of last year, we, the Township Board, actually approved a not-to-exceed amount of around $9,500 to spend with Row Engineering for conceptual drawings for Furtaw Field. We had 3 or 4 meetings, public meetings that were held, that Todd Dickerson, our EIC director, very graciously dealt with a lot of negative comments there. It wasn't always a positive experience. We all attended there. But the thought process is that we were going to get some renderings back and have goals that the community, including this board, wanted to see, and possibly put together an RFP so that we, if we decided to develop it, we would be bringing the developer here and maybe using, I'm just throwing this out there, but with RRC, a matchmaking opportunity, so that we, again, are saying what we want there as a community, and then we are interviewing people basically based on their presentation as a whole for the good of the community. So, and obviously, by some of the comments that you've heard on this board, we have a difference of opinion in regard to what should or shouldn't be there. So I think it's, it's very hard for anybody to actually make a recommendation that we're all going to agree with, because we've all got 7 different opinions here. So that being said, I guess, is there any more questions before we? Okay, all right.
And just one quick comment, point of information. We can't, at this point, we can't do anything with Furtaw Field until we have the survey corrected. We discussed at a previous board meeting. There's an area, it's a platted Furtaw is a platted piece of property, and in the original platting of that, it shows Evergreen Street going through part of Furtaw Field. Now, we're in the process of correcting that. Row Engineering is working on that being corrected, but it has to go to the plat board, which is in Lansing, and we have not gotten that taken care of yet. So really, anything that we plan to do with Furtaw Field can't actually happen until that is put to bed and corrected. So just to make that clear, so.
Great. So I guess we have two LOIs in front of us. Does the board wish to act on either one? Obviously, by what Mr. Palmer indicated, we really don't, either way, an LOI is just that, it's a letter of intent. There's a lot of details that would have to be worked out. But I guess my thought is that I would make a recommendation that we actually reject both LOIs at this time. And I would seek
Motion?
support, yes.
I support that.
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. Richards, support by Ms. McGuire to reject both letters of intent. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes?
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to resolutions. This evening, we have ordinance number 2022-271, ethics ordinance. I believe this is just on for discussion purposes. Tammy?
Yes, the attorney wanted it presented tonight to have you guys discuss it, and if you had any questions, provide questions, and just basically for discussion this evening.
Okay. I guess I'll start. I had a couple questions, like who, there is a board. Who would make up the board? Who would she suggest would make up the board in this
5
scenario?
citizens.
They would be, I believe, appointed citizens
Right.
from the board,
Appointed citizens that already serve on another board, or just random citizens?
just random citizens.
Okay.
Would they be under the guidance of the attorney?
I would imagine so. They would probably have to have some sort of guidance from her.
And do we have to have a board, or could that be just the attorney giving guidance to the board if, should there be questions?
That's probably why she wanted it up for discussion.
Okay.
So,
Did she have a recommendation? I'm sorry, did she have a recommendation?
she created the whole entire ordinance. She provided it to me on what she has pieced together from other municipalities.
Okay.
Is she available to, she's not available that we can Zoom her, we can't
No.
Zoom her in or anything?
No.
Okay. I just had some questions because I pulled off of the Michigan.gov, the actual model that they have for the ethics ordinance. And I was just curious about some of the definitions. Like she had some of the definitions of things in there, but didn't have all of them. And I was just curious of her thought process there.
So that would be something she would welcome emails or phone calls with.
Okay.
Don't we have an ethics committee or something like that? I mean, didn't we start something? A
We
subcommittee?
We kicked
have
it
a
to the
policy
policy committee.
Oh, the policy?
Yeah, and we haven't met.
So maybe this would be a good thing that the policy committee would,
I don't want this.
okay. Maybe
Just
not.
kidding. We could work with the attorney with it. I mean, I don't care.
I think it's a great idea. I read through it. There's a couple of areas in there that seem to have some grammatical issues, like she typed it in a hurry.
She may
But-
have. I've
But
been
those
keeping
issues
it-
notwithstanding, I mean, it's a good solid ordinance, you know? It holds everybody to a standard of accountability, and I would move that we adopt it.
think we're ready to adopt it, but we have to have some discussion, I think, on who would serve on the committee and everything else, but.
Well, if we adopt it, we would have to assign those people to that committee.
I'm not ready to adopt it.
Yeah, I guess I'm not ready to adopt it. It was,
Um,
number one, it's an ordinance, I believe we have to
Post it and
post it and everything
follow,
else,
yeah.
so. Yep,
And also, I put out on the treasurer's listserv today, because we didn't get the packet till Friday late, but, so I put it out there this morning first thing, and asked other entities what they use. Do they have a policy? Do they have an ordinance? Do they have a resolution? And I've gotten a couple responses back, and of course, they're all varying. So it's not like you have to have an ordinance, but there's different things that people are using. So, and I'm waiting to see if I can get some more feedback, me personally anyways, for them, to see what their reasoning was and why. I don't have a problem with doing it. I think it's actually needed. I think it'll give some guidance to all of our boards. It's not just for this board, it's for every committee, every person that's appointed, and the employees. So I think it's a good thing overall.
So should we set a work session and
I guess
and
that's-
have the lawyer
Yeah.
attend?
That's where I
so
was
that we
going
can-
with it, Jeremy. As we have to post it,
What's that?
I would recommend that we schedule a
No.
work session with
board
the
is
entire
adopting an
board
ordinance.
and the attorney as soon as possible, because we've been talking about this for a year, and we finally got it drafted. Actually, I've read through it a couple of times, and there's a few grammatical errors, a couple little tweaks here and there, but I think it's pretty good as written.
Well, I would, like I said, I just had a few questions, because from the one that's on the Michigan.gov, there's like a few things that aren't in there that are in here, in the Michigan one, but not in ours, and I was just curious to her logic, that's all.
Well, I guess I would make a motion that we schedule a work session with the entire board and the attorney as soon as possible to go through the ordinance and have it in a situation where we can bring it back to the board for approval.
Support the comments.
all right.
I would support that.
I think Mr. Cummings already did. There's a
Can't hear
motion
that
by
under the
Mr.
table.
Westerbarth and support by Mr. Cummings to schedule a special meeting, or I'm sorry, a work session with the board and the attorney to discuss this ordinance in detail.
Yes.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Wushterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Okay.
And we
Great.
want to try to schedule that now, or leave that to,
Probably have to get with the attorney's
I think we'll have to get with
availability.
the attorney's availability.
Okay, fair
and,
enough.
Yeah,
Let Tammy manage it.
yep,
thank you.
okay. Kimmy loves to wrangle us all in, right?
Like that.
Okay.
Just give me a call.
Moving on to other. The first on is the Awney Medical Center space rental request. Hi again.
Didn't we just talk?
Yeah,
This is part of our get-to-work plan.
yeah.
So in our requested additional time, we really want an office space here. So we want to set up shop and start getting to work. We have offered, we hope we didn't undercut what you guys would be thinking, but we did offer $500 a month for the space for 1 year.
Which space was that, Todd? I'm sorry, within? Okay,
Yeah, so if you've got the color-coded
Yep.
architectural floor plan, it should be colored in purple. You got to follow the little,
mine's not in color, but.
what's that?
Do you
You're
remember
not in
what
color?
space it was?
Well, it didn't, all those spaces are specifically labeled 1A, 1B, 1C, but when you walk in the eastern doorway, you walk in and there's the glass viewing area, where it's the door right to the right-hand side.
Okay,
It's about, if you look at the map and how they have the square footage is designated, my best guess, it's, 500 plus square feet. It's, in that space, it's mostly open, has 2 offices and 1 bath.
Not big enough for a conference room, but big enough for us for now.
Right, it has, you've seen the space that has partitions in there and so on that were there, right? And there's a bathroom in there as well, right?
You know, there's the possibility it may change hands during the course of any lease that you sign right now.
We did hear that.
Okay. Just making sure.
We did hear that.
But I would assume whoever the purchaser is would look at another rent as a positive, so. I can tell you that cell phones are pretty tricky in that space, so you might have to get a booster, because the
Okay.
walls are pretty thick, but.
Okay.
So you're proposing $500 a month for a one-year lease?
Yes.
Okay. All right, are there any further questions?
And then you guys are looking to convert that to a month-to-month lease after the 12 months pending.
Yes.
I think that was last rented by the Oscoda Valley Mental Health had that space as well. But
How many square feet is the area you're looking to rent?
500.
500 square feet?
Yeah.
How does that compare to the other leases that we have in the building as far as square footage?
The rest have much larger space, much larger. I think the smallest space that we do rent out is 2 United Way, and that's,
Smallest is what?
the smallest space is like a cubicle size for the United Way. It's very small,
yeah, and actually, they
and
don't,
that's
yeah,
not even,
they pay.
that's
It used to be $8.90 a square foot way back when, and I think then it was up to like $12 a square foot, so,
For rent?
yeah. Yep. I don't think that that's too far off base. No pun intended.
I'd move to accept for $650 a month.
Is there support?
Negative.
Does that include utilities? Yeah. So does the 650 include utilities? We just need to clarify. That's,
I would amend my motion to include utilities, yes.
Is there support for $650?
Doesn't look like it, but we'll see.
I don't hear support. Okay, that motion failed. I make a motion that we approve for the 500 as requested, and that does include utilities.
Support by Cummings.
Can you amend that? Would you, well, just, how about a little discussion?
Okay.
Could you maybe add to your motion that you would have the attorney draft that lease? To look at all the things,
Yes.
especially since we're gonna be auctioning the building, all those type of things, to make sure everybody's covered.
I mean, I don't think we've done a new lease in there since we obviously have this new attorney, but maybe they
Been a
can look
long
at an
time.
existing one and then go from there. Okay, so I would modify that to have the attorney draft that lease. Do you still support that, Mr. Cummings?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so the motion is by Ms. Richards, support by Mr. Cummings. The lease amount is 500, including utilities, and that does, that will be drafted by the township's interim attorney. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Cummings, or Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards,
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on, I'd like to skip this one, but moving on to police officer resignation. We have Officer Jerry Sobolewski's resignation letter in our packet this evening.
yes. His last day will be March 19th. He's accepted to go to the State Police Academy, and there is no change in his mind.
Can you repeat the last sentence? There's no change, what?
There is no changing his mind.
Oh, I got it.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, he's going.
yeah. He's not excited about leaving, but he's excited about the opportunity.
right, the career opportunity.
Yes.
I'd move to accept
blame him for
Mr.
that.
Sobieski's resignation letter.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Cummings.
And I would like to add that we accept it with regrets and appreciation for his nearly 8 years of service to Oscoda Township.
So amended.
Okay, amended to with regrets and appreciation for the 8 years,
Yes.
Still support?
and
Yes.
support by Mr. Cummings. Okay, roll
You're
call,
welcome.
please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes, with regrets.
Mr. Worcesterbart,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards,
Yes, with regrets. Next on is the police officer hire request.
So Chief David is requesting that we allow him to advertise for Officer Sobolewski's position so we can be prepared by the March 19 deadline, hopefully, and have someone ready to hire.
I'll move to allow the police chief to advertise for the up-and-coming open position at the Oscoda Police Department.
support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton to approve advertisement for the new police hire. Any further discussion? All right, roll call.
Mr. Worcesterbart,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes,
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes. And next on is the Furtaw Field use request.
All right, the original presenter for this particular item informed me that she would be ill this evening and would not be able to attend to present any of the events. I don't know if the board would like to continue as is, or if you would rather wait, we can push this to the next meeting when she can actually be here.
I guess my thought would be that we would wait with a suggestion, actually, that I believe that she needs to get with the Chamber of Commerce in regard to the events that are already scheduled, because I think quite a few of the events that she is proposing are in direct conflict with the Chamber's events. And that entity has worked very hard over the last few years to build those events. So we are a small community. We you know, it's great to have excitement and wanting to build future things, but we have to work together because we can't be competing with each other for different events. So that being said, I think that they should do that and then figure out the insurance thing because they are going to need, if they're going to be making a request for any of the township facilities, they are going to need
We did
insurance.
go over, we went over rates, what the rental would be, deposit, we went over insurance amounts.
Okay.
We did meet and go over all of that.
I would also like to see some due diligence. I mean, they're talking about bringing a Renaissance Festival to Oscoda. Well, that's all well and good, but the Michigan Renaissance Festival is its own entity. Have they contacted said entity? Do they have documentation showing what the entity has responded with? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff throughout that portion, or throughout that document, where they're saying that, well, we'd like to do this, and we'd all like to do that, but we need commitments, and we need to see that there's actually things going on the back end before we start approving this stuff, too.
Right.
So, just bear that in mind.
And just, and suggestions for time of the year. I mean, again, the CVB actually pushed the Paul Bunyan Days to the fall because they couldn't accommodate the rooms in the summer. So that has to be a dialogue, you know, if you're inviting people to the community, as I know that you know, Mr. Taser, with the Rock Fest, there has to be a place for them to stay. And thank goodness, everybody loves to come here in the summer, but it does make it difficult for travel. So again, they just need to, you know, reach out with the people that are currently.
I did ask her to contact the chamber, but I will reiterate this information.
I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
know you have. I know you have. I'm just saying it publicly to encourage it as well. So, because I did reach out when I saw this on the agenda to Kathy Morgan Jones, who's currently the president, or I don't know if it's chairman or president, I don't know what they go by, I forget, but with the chamber. So she said that they're on board on all their events this summer, so. Okay.
I had a quick comment about that too.
Right?
Just, I like the enthusiasm, like you said, but maybe, and like what Jeremy said, you know, bringing certain things, and you can't guarantee that you're gonna be able to pull all that together. I applaud them, that's awesome. It's like, where have they been for the last 10 years if they can do that, right?
Right.
But maybe pick one event, something that isn't in conflict, and start with one and see how that goes, and pull it all together and go from there, but.
And
I agree.
I'm not saying that they can't do it by themselves either, but I would really appreciate it if they would tie in the Chamber of Commerce. Just because the Chamber of Commerce has the experience doing these events for many, many, many years, and I think that their knowledge and ability and input is going to be invaluable for them to actually get these events off the ground.
Yeah, and with their enthusiasm, it'll be great for the chamber.
Absolutely.
And did I hear you make a motion at the beginning?
I
to
don't
postpone?
remember. I think I did.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I would just like to say one thing before we get off, vote on this, is that I would like to see them, I would like to decline this, but have them refine their request to specific things, because there's a number of things in here that are related to projects that would be on private property that don't involve the township. This Bravada's Restoration on US 23, that's a private business. And the other fear I had when I read this is they want to have a Chris Craft boat show at Ratliff Park, and I'm afraid that's going to cost me a lot of money, because I'll end up buying one of those things I've wanted for years. So,
Buyer
Right.
beware.
I guess
Yeah.
I will amend my motion to postpone and also have them, I think, streamline their request, I guess.
I'll support that.
All right, so there's a motion by Ms. Richards, support by Mr. Westerbarth, to postpone this request and ask them to streamline it to specific township properties. Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer?
yes.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the lot split request for 064 V1001101201, which is on River Road, next to the coffee shop, correct?
Yes. So this property split request is from a resident to divide one parcel into two to allow for the sale of property located at 118 River Road. According to Ms. Schwickert, this application has been reviewed by the zoning department, water and sewer, the treasurer's office, and the assessor.
Okay, is there any further questions?
I'll make a motion that we approve the lot split for the parcel presented.
Support.
There's a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Sutton, to approve the lot split as presented. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
I'm looking at it, hang on.
It's the building
This
next
is
to the, and it was attached to the little,
Oh, okay, so that's okay, so what are they doing? They want to split this in half so it's two houses?
the little red cottage at the back would be separate. They used to be part of the Historical Society property.
Gotcha. Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, sorry, yes, motion carried. Moving on to our agenda addition was the part-time library hire.
So the librarian, after many interviews, is requesting to hire Ms. Deborah Miller for part-time library assistant starting March 1st. She had many applications, like 30.
Well, that's.
That's great.
Yeah, I know. Can we
Yeah.
draw on those applications for other positions?
I would like to, yeah.
Good to hear.
I would make a motion to approve hiring Deborah Miller as the part-time library assistant to fill the 16-hour-per-week position.
I would support that.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Palmer, to approve the request. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Wustabart?
Yes?
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, we are finished with our agenda items. We are moving on to the second public comment section of the meeting. You do not need to fill a comment card, and it doesn't need to be on an agenda item, but you do need to state your name and limit yourself to 4 minutes. So with that, I'm going to start, no current order, but I'm going to start on the far left. Is there anybody in the far left that, raise your hand if you'd like to speak for public comment? Okay, anybody in the middle? Public comment? All the way in the back? Oh, go ahead, you can go first. I'm sorry, what? Okay.
Oh, my timer thing's up.
No, we won't start until you get to the front.
Not till you start
Yeah,
talking.
let's just start talking before you get there.
Yes.
Okay, please state your name.
My name is Clayton Jolly, and while I was not directly affected by what I'm going to talk about, a couple of friends who were asked me to speak for them. So that's why I'm here. I live on Loud Drive, so I've not been affected by the situation they have. They live on base housing, and they get township water. And recently, there were 2 separate incidents where there was a need for their water that was piped into their house to be boiled before being consumed, potable. The problem was neither one of them was informed of this until after the incident that created the need for this occurred. And it's my understanding from what I have read, perhaps in the paper, and for the pursuit by one of the people affected, that the same place created the situation 2 times. Don't know that that's true or not. But the same area was affected because both of their houses, and I have their addresses if you need them for the water department's records or whatever. The first incident wasn't learned of until 2 days after the incident. Some serious health issues could have occurred because of that, but did not, fortunately. The second time it was discovered the incident was because one of the affected people woke up with practically no water pressure. Thought at first that it was affected by freezing, found that wasn't the case, started making phone calls. Took more than a few phone calls to finally find out of the situation, and her water needed to be boiled. That is outrageous, to say the least. In this area, we should certainly be concerned about water quality, given the PFA situation the Air Force has left us to fight with. That said, we have a water department that obviously doesn't have a plan in place for emergency situations like this, and that's just egregious on their part. My belief is with all of the modern forms of communication we have, whether it's telephone, television, where we get warnings of severe storms, weather, ice, school closings, and everything else, the radio, there could be emails, some form of communication to let the affected people know, don't drink the water until you boil it. We'll let you know when it's safe to do it. This wasn't done. Also, let's take into consideration the fact that you have an association that all of the property owners on that base pay dues to. They would certainly have the phone number, address, and quite possibly an email address of the people who were affected and could perhaps be brought online to help notify the affected people. We're pretty fortunate, from my observation, that nobody was harmed in this situation. Knowing of it now, I expect this board to do something about it. It's our township water system that needs to have their communication system updated to let people know if they're adversely affected by the water, going to be adversely affected by the water coming into their home. And I'm asking you to take the steps to make sure that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Way in the back.
How you doing? I'm Rick Hennig from Oscoda. I apologize for the mask. I usually don't wear it. I'm being a little precautious tonight. I didn't intend to come here. I'm sure many of you are aware that the first hour and a half, there was no audio on the YouTube feed at all for anybody. I'm sure you guys are aware of that, but that's why I came here. I know you guys don't answer questions, and I do understand your reasons for that. I would like to know the 3 Warrior Pavilion meetings that we attended that were specifically for Oscoda residents' input on Furtaw Field, and that information was supposed to be then presented to the board. When is that gonna be presented to the board? If you guys need time to figure that out and get back with me, I'd understand. I don't think that's something I could FOIA, but any information on those meetings that we all attended, I would like to know how it was reported back that the township residents felt about it after doing all the sketches and everything, so.
Okay.
I understand you need time and everything, but.
Right, I don't have an answer for you right now.
I
We will.
understand that. Okay. Now, the last thing is, I know the people that are starting to, that group to try to contact vendors downstate to try to bring more activities to Furtaw Field. And I understand Mr. Spencer saying going through the Chamber of Commerce is probably the best way to do it. Of course, anything that anybody would try to attempt would obviously go to the board first, you know, wouldn't offer anything like that. But just know that there are volunteers that are trying to bring events up to Furtaw to utilize more, not just for the summer, but year-round. We have also volunteered our time. I talked to Mr. Palmer and Mr. Tage earlier at a meeting. We have volunteered to any of the buildings in the downtown area that may be considered blight. We are offering to either paint them or power wash them at our own expense if the owners are okay with doing that. So we just wanted to show that we are doing our part to volunteer and try to help this community as we can. So that's another thing we'd like to be bringing up, contacting the different owners, and if it's okay to throw some paint on there, power wash and clean it up, we'll volunteer to do it. We'll pay for the paint, we'll pay for the time, we'll do it ourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Just, and Roe did do the renderings based on the Warrior Pavilion meetings, but my understanding is they kind of got put on hold because of the questions about the survey for Furtaw Field. That's kind of moved to the forefront, taken up, but they do have the renderings. They did do those based on the Warrior Pavilion sessions.
Okay. But nobody has seen them unless Todd's seen them. Okay. But we haven't been presented with them, correct? Okay, just verifying that is, okay. All right. Okay, and I'm sorry, anybody else in the middle section? No? Okay, far right-hand side. Anybody want to speak? Kathy, anybody else? Oh, go ahead, Kathy. Not that you couldn't have, I was just seeing if somebody was closer.
Hello, Kathy Woosterbarth. I would just want to remind everybody that on Wednesday at 6 o'clock, a virtual MPART, Michigan PFAS Action Response Team meeting will occur They call them town halls. This one will be for Oscoda, and they'll be presenting various updates for the Oscoda residents. And of course, I want to encourage them to talk about the exposure assessment that they're looking at. Initially, when our community advisory team met earlier in the month, they indicated that they were not going to be talking about the exposure assessment, but now that we've been talking about it a little bit here at the RAB, and some of the veterans have found out about it, that I really do think that it needs to be, at least an update about where this project is. We were pretty disappointed that the Air Force, in talking to the veterans, disregarded their exposure to PFAS while they were using wells on the base. Unfortunately, the co-chair of the RAB has continued to deny that there could possibly be continued, or I guess a continued effect to the veterans that were exposed to those chemicals. So I would like to encourage veterans specifically that live here in Oscoda to participate in this exposure assessment and collecting of their blood samples so that they can know what is in their blood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, anybody else? All right, that wraps up public comment then. Moving on, to board comments. Anybody from the board that has a comment this evening?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
I just want to thank Mr. Koenig for coming out. Sorry about the audio. I'm sure they're working on it. They'll get it fixed. And I really wanted to say thank you because, I was on the board for the Chamber of Commerce years and years ago, and Lisa Sutton was the director, and I was on the board that brought in Ms. Ford to help out with that. And one of the biggest problems with the Chamber of Commerce and putting on a lot of these events that all of Oscodians miss is the lack of volunteers. They cannot, for the love of anything, get people to come down and stand there and take tickets. And even at the Paul Bunyan Festival back in the day, the CVB would help out a lot. And a lot of those folks are selling their resorts and retiring. So if Oscodians want lots of events up here, then they need to get out, go knock on the chamber door, and say, hey, I'll volunteer some of my time to help out. Doesn't have to be a lot, just a couple hours here, a couple hours there, makes all the difference in the world so that we can do these events. Because everybody wants them, and nobody's willing to put their money where their mouth is. So it's good to hear you coming up and saying that. Thank you, Mr. Koenig. I appreciate it. Yeah. Sound good.
I said thanks.
Oh, you're welcome.
Anybody else?
Yeah, and I have a couple of comments
Okay.
I'd like to make. One, I'd like to give a little bit of an update on the IET, the Oscoda Exploration Trail Phase 3 that we've been working on. We've run into some snags on that. First with the Forest Service, we were having some difficulty getting the information from them. We've managed to do that. I sat in on a meeting with Fred Lewis from Plainfield Township the other day with the Forest Service. Where we're having a problem now is with Fish and Wildlife. Their concern is with the Michigan Massasauga rattlesnake, which has to do with the Endangered Species Act. However, rattlesnake is not technically an endangered species. It's on a watch list, but the problem is they want to have full details of the entire Iosco Exploration Trail. Right now, we're trying to get Phase 3 completed. They have concerns about where gutters and culverts are going to be on Phase 7 going down M65. I hope, my fear is that we would lose our funding if our timeline isn't met for this project. I think we may have gotten over that hurdle with the meeting we just was part of last week. But there's, we've had talks about grants, and one of the grants come up for discussion about MNRTF grants, and the township was recently awarded an MRTF grant for $300,000 for Phase 3 of our bike path. So that's, if we can get the project going in time, we have all the funding in place. The other thing I wanted to mention, this has, I'd like to get this word out to all of our businesses. Starting tomorrow, the Michigan Department of Treasury is administering $409 million for business grant program for any business that was in existence prior to October 1st of 2019, and any business that was opened after October 1st of 2019 through May of 2020 would be eligible for 25% of certain costs. So there's a lot of money in this pot that they're trying to encourage businesses to apply for. And so I would hope we could get the word out to our businesses here in Oscoda that, you know, there's $409 million that will be available starting tomorrow at 8 a.m. They'll start giving out the applications. So just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
No.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. I know it was, you know, a little bit stressful to start with. We were a little bit late and everything. Sorry for the delay there. I guess I just want to mention one of the updates that we were going to get tonight was with Rowe, and they were talking about water main replacement. We do have a big round of water main replacement due to PFAS contaminations that's happening this summer. So we will be again extending water main due to that PFAS and in that area of concern. So that's happening this summer. So thank you very much. But with that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
So after our discussion last board meeting about resolutions, I called Catherine at MTA, and she said that resolutions have to be, okay.
Yeah, no, they can be rescinded.
Yeah, get a new one, yeah, a new one has to be redone, and then the old one is rescinded in the new resolution.
Okay.
Okay.
I meant to say